Right, some good questions there. Thank you. Martin, do you want to...
Yeah, I mean, there's a few points I'd like to respond to if I may. Let me start with the last. Pat Duggan does what he does. From my point of view...
It's a man. Something.
Is it you, Martin?
But of course, if it was a woman, I would say it like that, wouldn't I? He does what he does. And from my point of view, acts as an enormously valuable filter, because there's all this stuff out on all these websites, and what Pat homes in on are the postings that look as if they are rip-off productions equivalent to the production that we've talked about earlier in the evening, but people wish not to be referred to again. And the problem is you can't tell the difference, as I've said, as Benetta has said, as others have said, between honourable, genuine collaborations and genuine rip-offs. I believe, I mean, I know I've had so many complaints by people who've come at me from various directions about how vile Pat Duggan is, how rude he is, how bullying he is. And I actually genuinely don't know what they're talking about. He says, this looks like you're breaking the national minimum wage. Are you? Will you tell me? Will you reassure me that you're not? Now, how that's bullying,
we'll send you the correspondence.
I do not know.
We'll send you the correspondence.
You do, because people keep promising to do it, and they never have done.
Well, we will. And you know what? All the members of Shooting People who this has happened to were too frightened to come to this debate tonight because their names have been so mired. I wanted them to come and speak about it, and literally they are too...
Well, send it to me, Jess. Okay. Send it to me. Thank you.
And will the real Pat Duggan please stand up?
What?
I don't think he's here. Right.
If I...
My name is Pat
Okay. There's an interesting question about Brian about his right to contract with who he chooses because he wants to be free to do so.
The bottom line is that, of course, in the real world, of course, you can do that. I mean, whether you want to... I think to use the language of rights in this context is quite bizarre. But the bottom line is you can do that. If you're being mugged in the street and you actually choose to say, OK, take my wallet, I won't resist, you can do that. If you're burgled and you choose not to report it to the police, you can do that. It's your choice not to respond to situations where, in some people's eyes, you're being abused. If you want to make that choice, it's yours to make. What I want is a situation where people are more aware of the fact that they can also make another choice, which is much more rarely made, that they have the right to press for pay from rip-off producers that they're entitled to receive, but unless they argue for it, they will not receive. And that, you know, we haven't actually got equal traffic going both ways on this issue. But if that's your choice, make it. And we'll simply disagree about the fact that you're part of a problem in our industry for all the reasons that the guy at the back there said, that it's not a choice that's available to everybody in society. If you don't come from a privileged background, if you don't happen to have the money, if you don't happen to have another day job whereby you can fund your unpaid work in the film industry, then that's not a choice that's available to you. And we are, over time, seeing the input to this industry narrowing in terms of its social base. That people, kids from working class background, kids from unprivileged backgrounds aren't getting in. And for an industry that's meant to be a mirror for society, to look back upon itself and to examine its issues and examine its moral dilemmas, to have that increasingly narrow social base for the people who actually work in it, that's a problem. It's a problem not just for our industry, but of our democracy.
Okay.
One more point. The question was asked, where can producers now go to get some training? They're not all ignorant, and nobody up here has said they're ignorant, but some don't fully understand their responsibilities. And I think it's very sad the NPA's crashed, because for all our disagreements on some issues, they had a really good training programme which encouraged professionalism among new producers. We are about to roll out a project quite soon, which will probably be branded as the Creative Toolkit, which will provide advice and resources for anyone working in this sector of the industry. You don't have to be a BECTU member. All we're asking you to do is to sign up for the project and you will have access to a whole set of online resources about the law, about training, about skills, about how to build your career in this industry. Okay, and I hope that's part of an answer.
Brian, Brian, hold on. Brian, were you born with a silver spoon in your mouth?
Far from it, no. I come from the north. My father works in a factory. My mother is retired. I have to work a day job in a warehouse to pay for when I want to work in the industry. The fact is I want to work in the industry. And when people who come along and say, oh,
and to be paid eventually? Is that what you want? And to be paid eventually?
Of course.
Right.
I mean, it's nonsense to say.
So
okay.
Just start getting paid.
Great.
All right.
Well, how do I get paid if I go along to the BBC? I don't have any relatives in the BBC. I don't know anyone in the BBC.
Okay.
Will the BBC take me on? No. I've tried, and they won't.
Thank you.
So where do I go?
All right.
And that's my point.
All right. Now, Chris, you want to come in?
Well, again, I'm just very sad because I was thinking, oh, we're finding the middle ground, and I'm from the northwest of England. I'm from an underprivileged background. I managed to just about keep it together, but apparently most filmmakers independent filmmakers are now being paralleled with muggers. I find that extraordinary. It kind of is. It is. It really is. It's saying
about choice, Chris.
Yeah, no,
people can make.
I get that, but you know, it's inflammatory. And to the gentleman at the back with I'm sorry I went at you after that Oscars comment, because you know what, I should stand for what I believe in, which is we should be building bridges. I should.
And send the assistant.
Well, hey, I would love to. I've read the Academy rules, they won't let me do that. But we should have a drink, and do you know what? We'll agree on more than we disagree. And that's what I want to get back to, instead of chucking rocks at each other. It's really hard, this business. And, you know, we just keep getting back into the old rhetoric. So let's give it up. Let's just give up some of our position and find the middle ground and move forward.
Right. And there's another point of principle I just want to come back on, because this question of labouring for free is really fundamental here. Do you accept the point that if you work for free, it has implications beyond yourself to others who are also in that boat, who may want to make a different choice?
Well, I think there's a fundamental difference between television and film, which Benetta actually pointed out, that, you know, television has a value. You can actually say 1 hour of ITV is valued at that much, so therefore that's how much it will cost to make. Independent film has no inherent value that you, unless, as Jess said, unless it's Harry Potter or something like that. So it's, you know, I see what independent filmmakers is doing is completely additive to the business. If we shut down the entire independent film sector tomorrow, we all stop doing it, almost nobody in Britain would notice. That's the reality of it. We represent probably 0.001% of what people see in the UK, right? We are a blip. And yet we're getting all this heat. It's extraordinary. It just blows my mind. I don't quite understand why people think we're stealing jobs. It's ridiculous. It's not true.
Okay. Jess,
yeah, I'm just reminded of something that Ted Hope, the American producer. Do you know who Ted Hope is, you guys? He's a really interesting American producer, and he made a comment last year looking at the changes that are going on in the independent film industry globally, and he said the sky is falling. We're sort of talking in a bubble in this room, as if somehow we can roll things back to the 1970s. Things are falling apart and changing at an unstoppable rate. I mean, have you not noticed the newspaper? There's a newspaper folding a week in America. No one knows how we're going to be monetising content going forward. And just saying, actually, we should demand everyone gets paid, because that will roll us back to a nice place where less is made and everyone gets paid high wages, and that would be great. No, there's a reason that, you know, that content is so challenged right now, and that is it's digitally challenged to a completely unprecedented degree. We don't know. I mean, as Chris said earlier, we don't know what the film industry is going to look like in a year or 2 years. But sort of an idea that somehow, yeah, you can change the labour market by just saying, well, we're going to restrict supply by stopping anyone like this gentleman from volunteering. He's not allowed to, because that'll mean that someone over here will be paid more. I just think it's not going to work that way. It just doesn't work that way. Our industry is in fundamental meltdown.
Surely
and those of us who want content to be made that isn't Harry Potter, you know, the long tail. The truth of the long tail is the head is getting fatter and the tail is getting smaller. All the value is going into smaller and bigger Hollywood films. That's where we're heading. People in this room, we don't just want to go and see those films. We might want to go and see those films. We don't want just Avatar to be made, and we've got to try and figure out together how to get another kind of creativity going. But sort of saying, oh, well, look, we'll just roll things back to a slightly different era where things were more pleasant. That isn't the way it's going, and he knows it because he's a young man.
It's about honesty and trust.